Do you have your Baileys?
I don't. I did not refill my Baileys after the FCR.
Well, that's good because I would hope you would have washed that glass by now.
Oh, I was just drinking out of the bottle. Hello everyone, welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we will be having the second meeting of the VOK Book Club, where we will discuss Half a King by Joe Abercrombie. The format for the episode will be a brief spoiler-free discussion up front for those of you who haven't read the book or in the process of reading it and don't want to be spoiled. We'll then have a completely spoiler-full discussion, which I'm sure will descend into the expected madness of VOK as usual. Alright, so I'll just do a quick description of the book so people know what we're talking about. Yarvi is a prince of the small but powerful kingdom of Getland, which lies on the western shores of the Shattered Sea. His deformed hand has left him physically weaker than his powerful father the king and his older brother the crown prince, but he has a sharp mind and wit as well as a quick temper. When both his father and brother are treacherously murdered, he is forced to abandon his scholarly pursuits and take up the mantle of king. He leads his people against those he thinks responsible for the old king's murder, but finds himself betrayed again by those he thought his closest allies. He manages to survive this attempt on his life, but is sold into slavery where his true journey begins. Yarvi survives test after test, as he does, he grows in many ways. He finds himself at the head of a ragtag group of survivors as he plans to take back his rightful throne from those who have betrayed him, full of blood oaths, high seas hijinks, lady pirates, slave revolts, strangely civil savages, and more. Half a King is a fast-paced high fantasy adventure and the first book of the planned Shattered Sea Trilogy. To start off, we'll go around, introduce ourselves, and give our slave collar / lemon cake ratings, followed by our quick thoughts on the book overall. Amber, would you like to go first?
Hi, guys. This is amberrocks on the forums. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. The first half or so of the book I really enjoyed. I ran home to read it. I would give the first half about a 4.5, and then there was a certain point where I just kind of found myself being distracted and reading a lot more slowly, so I would give the second half like a 3 or 3.25, so overall somewhere around 3.75.
This is Brett, White Raven on the forums. I think I would give the book a 3.5, I'd say. It definitely isn't one of his better works, but it was entertaining and I made it through it, so there's always that.
My name's Alix. I'm Aiwendil on the forums. I would give this book 4 lemon cakes. I thought it was pretty good overall. There were some good points and some less good points, but it was very well paced, and I never stopped reading it, basically. So I would definitely read more by Joe Abercrombie. I haven't read anything else by him yet, but I would definitely read the rest of the series.
Hi, this is Duncan, or Valkyrist on the forums. I'd give it 3.5 slave collars. Although I guess half a slave collar is kind of useless, but I thought the story was really engaging, very easy to read. I thought this is the first book by Joe Abercrombie I've read, but I thought his writing and dialogue was very witty and deft. I thought it was a nice contrast to other fantasy novels that I've read, which can be very sort of sluggish and overindulgent in terms of descriptions. It was nice and lean. On the bad side, I thought some of the characters didn't work quite as well with them, even though I was entertained by a few of them. I didn't really feel like I got to know any of them, but I thought the dialogue sort of helped bring them to life, and there was a few that were very memorable. So, 3.5, and definitely makes me interested in reading more Joe Abercrombie.
Hi, I'm Greg, claudiusthefool on the forums. I think this is going to be the first time that I give it the lowest rating out of everybody. I'll give it a 3 because I love the writing. It was super fast-paced. I read it in 2 days, but the whole time I just found it super predictable, and some of the all the characters I thought were very two-dimensional. I mean, even Yarvi, who's supposed to go through this transformation, I found not particularly original. I haven't read much fantasy, but I'm trying not to compare it to Game of Thrones and Tolkien, which is like what my other really two fantasy worlds that I can compare them to. But it was really it was a fast book. It was fun to read, and I was sort of angry at myself how much I was enjoying it because I kept saying like this is silly, but I can't put the book down. And I read it in 2 days. I'm not a fast reader by any means, and I did read it really fast. But I just overall I'll give it a 3.25. I'm glad that there's a little bit of a range, so we'll have plenty to talk about. But I liked Yarvi as a character. He reminded me of other characters from fantasy, and I thought he was very witty and Tyrion Lannister-esque in a lot of his goings-ons. I've been told that Joe Abercrombie, is this amazing fantasy author, and I know The Blade itself and his the first trilogy he did is supposed to be amazing. I haven't read anything else by him. I think I will go back and read his earlier stuff, and I'm hooked on this one. I'm still going to read the other books also, but I just wasn't completely blown away as I was expecting to be. So we've got a pretty good range on the slave collars for the rating period. But I just figured we could just talk briefly about the book without giving away too many spoilers. Just what you liked about it. If I don't know, can we do this without? We can do this without doing spoilers, right?
We'll try.
Yeah, we'll try. If not, it'll just all be spoilers. But basically, the world that it's set in the Shattered Sea. Is this? We don't really know how big it is. I kind of pictured it as like a Mediterranean Sea-sized, geographical area that's got cities surrounding it. This, ruins in the center of it. Kind of reminded me of maybe Valyria from the Song of Ice and Fires. Something went down at some point in the past, but you don't really know what. And it's set in sort of a, it's kind of like Vikings mixed in with Middle Ages. Like I picture like a 12th, 13th century thing going on maybe. But what do you guys think of just the general setting of the story?
I liked it. I have to just preface everything I say by saying I just read for the story. I don't picture maps in my head. I don't think of possible outcomes or what might happen in the future. I just kind of consume. But I did like the whole, the sea and the stories of the gods and the elves and many gods and one god, and I thought the whole history was pretty well presented.
I think it was well presented, and it left like a lot to be wanted because he didn't like come right out and say much, so he gave you a lot to look forward to in the rest of the trilogy.
I thought it was refreshing how little backstory he gave. It seems like a lot of fantasy novels, they hit you straight away with like 30 pages of history and world building and maps, and it was just nice to start with a character and his insecurities and then slowly build out the world. And like it was a pretty small sort of map. Like it didn't feel like a very big kingdom. It was just kind of this little tucked away area of a much bigger land, it felt like. And we slowly learned more about it. But it didn't feel like the history was that big a presence in the novel. It was more just, I don't know, it's more them just kind of dealing with the elements rather than, maps and things like that.
Yeah, I liked how it was introduced through the characters and not through like hundreds of pages of descriptions. And also the fact that Yarvi is studying to be a minister, which is kind of this world's equivalent of the Maester. He gives us a lot of insight on history without it feeling like a description.
Yeah, I definitely did appreciate that we weren't bombarded with information, and it did take off. I mean, that first chapter of, basically where, they find out the king's dead and he's got to take up the mantle. I was in it, and I, read 50 pages in an hour, and it's very readable.
But it also seemed like there was some cool history left to be explored.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
They keep referring to these elf ruins, so I guess maybe this is in the wake of a much bigger civilization that's collapsed, maybe? Or, I don't know, maybe it's like a post-apocalypse after elves ruled the world or something.
Well, that's I put a note in there about that, but I guess we can... It's all going to be spoiler-free, spoiler-full, so let's just go for it.
Is it elf ruins really a spoiler? It's not really
it's not a spoiler, it's
story.
Just
I know, but it's a book review, and you can't review a book really without being spoilery. Oh yeah, good review.
That's right.
But the whole thing is that this world is set. There's these elf ruins, which are these magical ruins that people, have stories about and where they came from. And there's elf stone and elf, magic. And I think that these are humans they're talking about, and this is set like far in the future after some nuclear war or something, because they reference that one island that they go to in the middle that no one can stand there and live long because it's they return sick, and I think that's radiation. And they mentioned that at the top of the elf ruins there's like rebar sticking out, so I think that's concrete because they're like fascinated by concrete. So I'm laying that down right now. This is just set in the far future. Does anyone else think that's plausible?
Definitely.
I don't see why not.
I hadn't thought about it myself, but it's logical.
I kind of wish he had not used the word elf, though, because at this point, I have an image in my head of what an elf is, and it looks like Orlando Bloom. And not that they, and it seems like he's trying to go a different way with it, but, just make up something else.
I think it can be tough to make up other things, though, and have people still accept it. I don't know why that is, but it's like people just want things they're familiar with sometimes. I'm not saying I'm for or against calling it else. I think he just used that, and maybe he'll explain why they call it elf later.
Right. It could have been his intention to, to get that exact reaction. I'm going to use the word elf because people kind of have an idea of what that might be, and maybe that was his plan. I don't know.
It's kind of like the one connection to fantasy that I could think of.
Right.
Everything else was pretty sort of rooted in realism and medievalism and
castles.
stuff. Yeah, but we have castles.
There's
That could just
castles
be
in Europe,
historical
too.
fiction.
Right, well, that was the one, like, what actually makes this a fantasy novel? We know it's a fantasy novel because Joe Abercrombie writes fantasy, but there's nothing in the story. There's no actual magic, and there's no intercession by gods, as far as we know. It's not even, like, vaguely drowned god thing going on. There are gods referenced, but there's no, as far as I can remember, there was no, like, intercession by gods coming in and helping characters, or spells, or anything like that, right? It was pretty much just straightforward, adventure, historical fiction story, just in a made-up world.
Yeah, there was a reference to magic at one point when they talk about how the ministers started. That the guy who founded that order was trying to protect the world from magic, and I think that's the only time it's mentioned.
Yeah, but at the same, we don't see that though. That's just someone referencing something.
Yeah, it's just a story.
Yeah, I did like that. Goes with the whole. I mean, they definitely, like you said, that they were like maesters. The ministers reminded me of maesters. That's they're this knowledgeable order, and they're using their scientific knowledge, and they're fighting magic. And there was that line he had about protecting the world from magic. I think that's what it was. But,
Yeah,
Maybe magic is even technology, and
Right,
they want to keep it
yeah.
away.
Well, I'm wondering if that'll play a bigger role in the later books in the series. We'll find out more about that. Whether that
I hope so.
magic
I don't
is
know
a
where they're
bigger-
going.
a bigger presence in the world, and like find out more about the elves and what the ministers, because the ministers seem to be taking, as we see in the sort of towards the end of the book, they're taking a pretty big hand in the affairs of the world, unlike maesters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not. They're more. I guess they have more political say than maesters do. In A Song of Ice and Fire, they seem to be more like head of state, or prime ministers. Maybe that should be their. Because they're actually whispering in the king's ear, not just taking down his messages. And of course, they use doves instead of ravens, or they use doves, right? So it's
Well, it seems,
Yeah, they use doves and crows and eagles.
and eagles. Yeah, only the High King gets the eagles.
well, it seems like the women are the ones who are actually running this world, like the economy and all the sort of magisterial parts. The men are just basically hammers to sort of fight each other.
Yeah.
I did really like that, how it seemed like the women were in charge, and that's just how it was. Like, there wasn't a big like, oh, she's a woman and she's doing this and that. It was just very matter of fact, and I thought that was refreshing. But maybe I just thought that because it's kind of been in the news lately.
Yeah, well, Yarvi is the only male minister we meet, isn't he? By the end of the book, I thought that they were only females for some reason until they call him Brother Yarvi or something like that.
Yeah, but we only meet like what, 4?
Yeah, but I guess that's a representative sample in a in a small
Yeah, I
fantasy
don't know
world.
how many kingdoms there are inside this kingdom. So
Yeah, that's my one little complaint about the map. Like, it's a really cool map, but there's no scale, and even like the Tolkien map has a little scale on the bottom of it, so you know how big everything is. So this could be a lake, or it could be the Indian Ocean.
Abercrombie's,
On my Kindle,
Abercrombie's
it
actually-
looks like a lake.
Yeah.
Abercrombie's actually pretty big on not like being super detailed on maps because he likes to have the flexibility in his novels. Like I don't like, for the first trilogy he wrote, there was no map, and I know people were pretty upset about that, but
Well, I kind of almost
didn't
would have
mind it.
preferred it if there was no map. That's just, I like to picture stuff on my own, and then when you see it, it's not how you pictured it. It kind of takes away from it.
Thankful for the map, because at the start I pictured Thorlby and Getland to be on the easternmost part of the Shattered Sea, and so then when they started their journey in the ship, it was all backwards. So then I looked at the map and I was like, oh, it's on the other side.
Yeah, one of the characters mentions how it's basically, think of it as a clock and the hands of a clock, and that really makes sense because that's basically what he does.
Yeah, I didn't really care about the map. I looked at it afterwards just to see, and it was sort of helpful in contextualizing some of the places. But I think it's about halfway when they have to make their way someplace by foot that it all came together where things were located. And I think it took about a month for them to get from like the North Point to Vesterland, is it? So I guess it's not that big if they can get that far in a month.
Yeah, I was flipping to the map every other chapter, and then like literally pointing to where I think Yarvi is.
You are here.
GPS.
It like has little chapter things, so you know where you are for each chapter.
Yeah, it's a little dot making its way.
You should invent that.
Yeah, but you brought up an important point about the role of women. I think that's a big thing, not just in the just the ministers, but even the gods and goddesses. It's most societies, it's the males that are the roles of the gods of war and the gods of battle, and in this one it seems to be the opposite, where it's father peace and mother war, and
That was cool.
mother sea, and anything that's violent is a woman almost, and it's the kind of the father's is the peaceful figure, which
To me,
you
it
don't
kind of
really
just
get.
seemed like he flip-flopped everything, and that was just the way he did it.
Yeah, no, that's what he was doing.
Yeah, I was wondering how they would translate that into other languages where nouns have grammatical genders. I tried to find the French translation, but it hasn't come out yet.
That is interesting. I never thought of that.
Because, like, for example, the word for peace in French is feminine, so father peace wouldn't work.
I read, this is going to sound stupid because I don't even know what I'm talking about, but I read a thing about how labeling things in languages gender is. This might have been on the podcast. Not this podcast, the Amin's podcast with the guy that makes languages. About how feminine and masculine aren't really the same thing. And sorry to derail that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but like in French literature, there's always allegories of concepts being represented by female or male people as well.
Oh.
I guess if you have more than two grammatical genders, then it doesn't make that much sense. But in French, there's only two.
So in French, do the more peaceful, are feminine things feminine? Like love and nest?
Actually, no. Love is masculine.
Yeah, it is.
How did I know Brett was going to say that? I didn't say it because I knew you were going to say it.
And war is feminine. So... Yeah, I don't think it's really French, logical.
Joe Abercrombie, he's not French, or
I think he's British.
Yeah, he's English.
Yeah,
lives in Bath, England, with his wife, 2 sons, and a daughter. Sorry, 2 daughters and a son. I didn't know how this fits into fantasy today or high fantasy. Is it? Do you think this is going to be like a classic trilogy, or his books kind of just take them one at a time and go?
I guess the way I see it, I mean, I read it a fair amount. And the way I see it, it's like there seems to be this new apocalyptic thing going on where people like flip it around and it's actually the future. I think Mark Lawrence did that with his series, his Broken Empire series. And this is kind of, somebody mentioned it on the forums, this is kind of along those same lines as like the concrete and the rebar kind of thing. And there's like one person in that series that like he's frozen in time and he's like the custodian and they think he's some kind of god, and people like fashion a mop as their scepter. It's weird.
Like Planet of the Apes, kind of.
But they're humans. Well, I guess they're humans. I guess I can't see them, but yeah. But as far as like Joe Abercrombie goes, I don't think this is necessarily a good depiction of what he normally does. He's usually much more clever with his dialogue. Mm-hmm. And in this, I was kind of let down by it. I think that's part of the reason why I gave it only a 3.5, because his dialogue is usually outstanding. And this, some of it was okay, like the part where the guy's like, I wish for a guy to row with 2 hands. And he's like, well, at least you got half of what you wish for, because believe me, I wish for none of this.
Yeah.
It kind of made him laugh, and that's the kind of thing he usually has a lot of in his books, and there just wasn't a lot of it in this, so I was disappointed in that.
I like the banter when they were kind of on their own trying to survive the snow. I was kind of chuckling to some of the back and forth.
Yeah, Rolf and Jod had the best lines.
Would now be a good time to do a little detour of what, if this isn't like the best Joe Abercrombie, what would be a good thing to read next by him?
If you wanted to just read one other book by him and just to see what his writing is like, I would suggest Best Served Cold. It's a standalone in the same world as the trilogy and everything, but you don't really need to read the trilogy to get it. Did you want me to describe it, or is it like a revenge novel?
That's fine. No, I like.
I
just
could tell from the title.
No, I didn't want to be seen as crapping on Joe Abercrombie by any means, because this is the only book of his I've read. But I feel like this. I've read a lot of young adult literature, and I feel like this would have been a perfect young adult book. It had very little actual, like, there's really no sex or violence or, like, brutal violence. I mean, it's like Hunger Games kind of violence, arrows through necks and stuff like that. But it doesn't get to the level of A Song of Ice and Fire with the raping and pillaging of the Westerlands or anything like that. Riverlands, sorry, Riverlands.
It seems to be targeting a much younger audience. Yeah.
So you're saying Rob raped Jane?
Don't start anything.
Oh shit.
I'm editing. I can cut all this out, so you can say anything you want.
He's not saying
Smoke and
nothing.
mirrors.
Abercrombie, this is his first young adult. The rest of them are more adult books, and it definitely shows. But
It's not a
they
young
all,
adult book.
huh?
It's not a young adult book.
This one?
No, it's not. That's what I'm saying. It should have been one. It wasn't
Oh, I think
marketed.
it is.
No, it's
I think
not.
it is,
No, it's $26. It's marketed as adult fiction.
Oh.
Just because it's expensive doesn't make
Is
it
that
adult.
what
No,
determines
that's
it?
actually that's a we in the bookstore we're like, well, how do you tell if it's an adult book or a young adult book? Well, if it's $17.99, it's a young adult book.
Oh, no kidding?
There's no $25 kids books that are released in hardcover. That's insane.
Huh.
But it seems to be targeting a younger audience. It is.
Oh, there's books like
compared
there's the Pure trilogy out there, which are it's funny. The first one was $26, and then they realized only kids are reading these. So when the second one came out, they officially made it a young adult book. But it's the Hunger Games has really sort of changed the whole landscape of young adult literature. But this wasn't marketed as a young adult book. It was reviewed and marketed as a adult fantasy novel.
So when Harry Potter came out, could you buy that for under $17.99?
No, that's that's the outliers. That the Harry
Oh, I
by the
see.
last book they were $35 a piece.
Unless they're popular. I
They
gotcha.
yeah. But yeah, most YA literature is like A7. Like Rick Riordan is like the king of YA literature with the Percy Jackson books, and his books are $19.99. Like that's the most kids books get. But not to divert it into a pricing
Economic.
discussion.
That's interesting, though.
I mean, I've read every other Joe Abercrombie book there is, and I love them all. This is probably the biggest, the worst one of them all, I'll say. But then again, I'm not a young adult, and I do think this is definitely catered to young adult.
So I feel like for these kind of books, you need to at least like the narrator because it's his story and you're so wrapped up in it. Did you like Yarvi as a character, or because I kind of liked him at the beginning, and then by the end I realized he was just basically selling out his people kind of to get back at this chair that he didn't really want in the first place. And
Right.
I kind of wasn't on board with the way that whole end of it went down, where gets the other guy to come in and do his dirty work for him. What do you guys feel on Yarvi as a character?
I kind of felt like it was almost intentional that you really, really rooted for him in the beginning. And then he kept pointing out about himself. Well, I'm doing this, kind of douchey shit, but I've got to. So I kind of felt like he was almost creating tension where you're like, I don't know if I like this guy anymore. And that actually, I don't know if I would necessarily read the next novel or the next two. But it feels like he's creating space for him to kind of have an arc where he turns into not the greatest guy, and then you can root for him again at the end. But yeah, I didn't really care for him
I kind of
by the end.
I kind of want to wait and see how they view oaths like further on, because I don't understand how their god system works. So maybe an oath to their gods is like a really, really serious thing and you have to follow through. But since we didn't get a whole lot into that, I don't really know. So it's tough for me to judge him on that. In my world, that's a bad thing he did, but in their world, maybe it's different.
Well, I hadn't thought of that. That's actually a good point. That because we know that he has a temper, and like that's one of his failings is that he can get caught up in things. And he made that with the blood oath when he was totally like stoked and like I've got to do this thing. And then if he maybe was just stuck to it no matter what, then I can see him doing that. But I hadn't actually thought of that, so I'll give him an out there.
I didn't really understand a lot of his motivations. Like, I get that he made the oath because he was having a bad mood that day because his father was dead and all, but it wasn't something that he really wanted. Like, he always wanted to be a minister, never wanted to be a king, and then suddenly he makes this oath to take revenge on his father's killers, and then he basically starts destroying his hometown with the help of his enemies.
Call the Conqueror.
to get this throne that he doesn't even want. So that kind of, I didn't really identify with Yarvi on that point.
It seemed like he was a character without much, like, I don't know, a sense of agency or a sense of like his own what he wants to do. He was kind of just told what to do by his mother and father, and it seemed like he had a pretty abusive relationship with his father and his older brother, and he kept trying to get away from that and join the ministry a bit, and then he was just pulled back in. And yeah, he was just kind of a walking zombie for a lot of that. And I guess he took the oath because he was told he had to take the oath. And it wasn't until he became a slave that he realized, I don't know, he wanted to do something for himself.
Yeah.
It's like sense of need for vengeance burned inside him. And I guess this journey was him coming to terms with himself and finally deciding what he wanted to be, which was ultimately pretty ruthless. But
I think
at
he's
least it's
also
his, I
quite
guess.
young. Like his
Yeah,
age
yeah.
isn't mentioned, but he's still growing during the
Yeah.
novel. So
Well, and that's
So he's a young
interesting.
adult.
Or
Sorry.
is he a new adult?
He's a
by
new
the end?
adult.
That's an interesting point, Duncan, that actually when he was zombie Yarvi and just kind of, at the mercy of whatever he has to be doing, and then he's a slave and he's enslaved, that was actually much more interesting to me than after he kind of got free and was able to, the point that I was talking about where that was the divide for me was the second time that he met Gromgil Gorm. And it was just kind of like, after that, he's like, okay, he can just go off and do whatever. And it was kind of when he was on his own that I found it much less interesting.
But you guys brought up the kind of relationship with his family, and I think I'm one of the few people that, I think everybody can understand why his uncle betrayed him and did that, but I kind of thought that his uncle was the better king for the... he wasn't the rightful heir, but I think he was the better king in this society where you need to be strong and be able to battle the other crazy king across the river. Like, I feel like he really was the best fit, and his reasons, he always kept saying that, he smiled as he was going to slip the knife into his throat and everything. It's like, yeah, he seemed like he was a good guy, and he was doing the best for his people. Anyone else think that, or is that just a cop-out?
Well, I think pretty clearly he wouldn't have, if Yarvi had just, if that betrayal had never happened and Yarvi had just ascended to the throne and been the king, he would not have been a good king. He had to go through those experiences.
Oh, I take it back. I forgot that he killed the father and the brother. I thought he just wanted to kill Yarvi, so yeah, he's bad. Never mind.
Yeah.
I read this like 2 weeks ago.
He also helped kill his other brother.
Yeah, no, I just realized. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we think.
Well, tried to kill him. No, he even said it. He was like, I turned my back, and then he was like in the ocean or something.
Yeah, he's very bad about letting people fall into oceans and then coming back to haunt them.
Making sure they're dead.
Yeah.
Was there I felt like there was some sort of foreshadowing when Yarvi was peeping in on him in the throne room, and he almost seemed like he had some sort of guilt. Like, I had to do this. So is that setting up for something, some other plot in the future, or was that just...
Well, I thought we found out that it was the High King that basically told him that he had to go, and that it was his job to do that. And that scene where you think he's talking to Yarvi for a second, but he's actually talking to the gods.
Okay.
But I think it was the High King in Slurkland, wherever. Sorry, what was it?
They want the queen.
Skaken House. Yeah.
That's
They
right.
want the golden queen there.
Steakhouse.
I didn't reread, but that's true.
The whole problem was that his mother was like minting all the currency with her face on it, and the king didn't like that. Like, he wanted it to be his golden lady.
But yeah, but I feel like that's where the second book is going to go, with the whole battle between them and the old king. But we'll see what happens there.
I'm wondering if that implies like the king is starting to become less and less relevant in this world. Like, the new power is kind of capitalism and this kind of mercantile class that's taking over, and the kings kind of see this, that they're these kind of relics of a much more warlike time, and they're trying to hold on to that.
Yeah, like the High King is trying to like bring in all this religion and stuff while she's just doing all the commerce and killing it.
Yeah, like the traditional kind of world is trying to reassert itself, but the queen, I guess, is trying to forge a new kind of world.
And I did like the character. Was it Laithland, I think her name is, where at the beginning I thought she was just going to be this kind of like evil mother whispering in his ear type of character, but she actually, I think she almost kind of goes on more of a journey than Yarvi does, or at least in the way that she's presented to us, and where I was like super rooting for her. That last scene where she marches in and confronts Odin and everything, where she kind of she stood by her son, which I didn't see happening because she loathes him so much, but you realize how much she does care for him, and it's not just the fact that he's her only son, but she does love him, I think.
Yeah, she seems really interesting. I want to learn more about her, definitely.
I kept waiting for her to betray him. Like, maybe she was in on it, or but she didn't. So that's cool. That's cool that she didn't.
Yeah.
He's got to have somebody on his side.
And a little conniving cousin who I thought was this like little mouse of a person ends up kind of like nudging the mother out of the way, and she's just
like
as
her
bad.
father.
Yeah, just as bad as her uncle, as her father.
I made a note about that in the beginning where I was like, she just seems too perfect for him.
When
Like,
she was staring at the throne, like, I want this.
yeah, it's like, I don't know.
Also, kiss me better.
Yeah. Can we talk about how crazy Shadiq Sharam is?
Oh yeah, well, we can
yes.
just go around and talk about the other characters and who you had anything to talk about, because there were some. I saw one of the strengths of the book was actually the supporting cast.
Absolutely.
But if you want to bring up the name that is kind of unpronounceable, go ahead.
Shadiq Sharam, she was crazy. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. Like, I can't believe how much, I don't even know the words for it. She's just so focused on whatever her goal happens to be, even if that goal is getting drunk. She's all for it. She's all in all the time.
Yeah,
She was
that's a
pretty
good
cool.
description.
I actually kind of liked her. Like, she was definitely evil and scary, but at the same time, you kind of just wondered, like, okay, what's she going to do next? She's crazy.
He almost made you feel bad for her at the end.
Mm.
Like, when he kills her, like, no, not you. I used to, like, run fleets, and it's like, now I'm just getting stabbed by some one-armed kid. That's crazy. Because she had, like, this big backstory. It's pretty interesting, but they kind
Yeah.
of just skimmed it. That's what I kind of like that, though. Instead of going into it really deep, they just kind of skim over it, and this happened, and then keep going on with the story.
Yeah, we get a lot of the history of the world from the the characters from his ship, the slaves, and how I always get Jawed and what's the other guy's name? The other Rolf mixed up. I don't remember which one was the archer and was soldier, which one was the farmer. But
Rolf was the archer, I think.
Okay, yeah, and Jawed was the farmer, the baker. He was a baker, right? Somebody was a baker,
Yeah.
wasn't there?
Yeah.
I think that's Jawed.
But there was this epic battle between these two major fleets sometime in the past, and I believe Shadiq Sharam was like the admiral of that fleet. But
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Damn it. Admiral. So stupid.
but
And she, like, captured nothing, right? As a part of that.
Oh yeah, well we can talk about nothing, or Jean Valjean, as I will refer to him for the rest of the podcast. The first time we met him, anytime there's an unnamed character, I don't know if it's a trope or it's something clicks in my head. If they don't name a character, there's a reason they don't name that character.
Especially when they dance around it.
Yeah,
Like
25
and they had
times.
all the little things, like, I don't know, they had a lot of drop lines. I noticed them all the second time through.
Mhm.
I mean, it didn't surprise me when it ended up being his uncle, but, like, a lot of the things he said, you go back through the second time, you're like, oh, it's so obvious. I'm not surprised you figured it out way before.
Well, it was all this stuff about the sword, how she made the point of saying, don't ever give this man a knife or a sword or any sort of blade, and then every time there's a fight scene, he mentions how his uncle was the finest swordsman in the land and no one could stand against him, and who else could he have been? Because if he turned out to be no one, it would have been stupid. What's the whole point?
And then when he does his, like, oath, I will help you until the rightful king sits on the throne. It's
Not
like,
you, buddy.
Yeah.
how obvious is this?
I didn't understand how Yarvi couldn't put two and two together and realize that it was his uncle. Because, I mean, they're from the same family. You should be able to recognize someone.
Well, he's scarred, and he has his hair long, and he looks like shit, and
Yeah,
you're not expecting to see your dead uncle ever.
He's not revealing his name. He's the best swordsman ever. He keeps going on about how Getlanders are the shit, and I mean, how many clues do you have to give?
It's a pretty big coincidence. I don't think I'd put it together that some random, like, golem creature was my long lost uncle.
If I hadn't have read Greg's spoiler, I totally would have missed it.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, but that's just me.
okay.
Well, we can talk, because that kind of led to a discussion on the forums about just because there's a reveal or something spoiled, can you still enjoy it? And for me, it does take away from it, knowing if I figured it out and I was right, because the whole time you're reading, you're waiting for the reveal, and then by the time it happened, it was a pretty awesome scene where the battle had, the coup had taken place, and everybody was dead, and there was a couple people left, and when he reveals himself, I was like, okay, now it happened, now I can enjoy the rest of the story. But for me, it was just a build-up to the reveal, because if it didn't happen, I would have been angry, and then when it did, I was like, okay, that happened, But I
So
wasn't
if it really
saying...
had been nothing, you would have been like, this is the stupidest book I've ever read.
So either way, you were throwing the book across the room.
Well, I only dinged two corners. It wasn't a complete throw across the room. It was just a
Man,
drop.
that was a $24.99 book. What are you throwing that for?
Employee discount. It's not that bad. But I wasn't trying to be like, oh, I picked up on this early. It seemed that it was more obvious than not, or just more that was where it was going than it wasn't. That's all I was saying. But Yeah, there were different views on that.
As someone who doesn't really pay attention to that stuff, I don't think it necessarily, if it's going to be an awesome moment, it's still going to be awesome. But I think it's very personal.
It was, I compared it to the last episode of the last season of the show. We're waiting for Stoneheart reveal, and we didn't get Stoneheart. And then, because I hated the episode, and then when I watched it the second time, I was like, that was a pretty awesome episode. But the whole time I was watching it, I was just waiting for the reveal, and that's how I felt for 150 pages in this book.
Except you were right.
Right, except I got it, and then I was happy and not happy. So I can be pleased.
I was expecting you to. I was just a bit underwhelmed. Sorry, that all the lines were so corny between Uthiel and Odam. They're like, "I am the rightful king." No, you! I threw you into the ocean.
I bite my thumb at you, sir.
This is impossible. It was very cliche.
Well, that another thing was the dialogue was super corny at times, but that's what, because I haven't read much fantasy other than the other stuff, but like, is that how it usually is? Or like, is that just something that par for the course that you kind of have to have this epic dialogue to go with the epic setting? Or I feel like the ones that don't are the exception to the rule.
I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I've read books where the dialogue was better than this.
I know, just trying to give me out. But even before, like, he revealed himself, and just as an aside, I love Les Mis. It's like my top 2 favorite shows, and one of my favorite songs from Les Mis is One Day More. And in One Day More, Jean Valjean says, "The time is now, the day has come, tomorrow comes." And in this one, nothing says, "The day is here, the time is now, the reckoning comes." So he's definitely a Les Mis fan, or he's definitely doing that on purpose, because that's too obvious to just be a coincidence. So I'm sure I misquoted that, so don't have to quote that back at me if I mess it up a little bit, but the sentiment is there. So I was waiting for like a tattoo on his arm, like 24601 or something, which we didn't get.
It's strange that like in his other books, when he has reveals like that, they almost blindside you. It's not like it's a big reveal and you're like, oh shit, but it's like, oh man, that guy was that guy, that kind of thing. And it's just really, he doesn't give you any clues to it. So this one, I thought it was surprising that he gave so many clues.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't want to beat it over. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about that one thing. But no, it didn't. It just took away a little bit from me. But the other thing I just want to bring up was it's the kind of story where you pretty much 99% know that the main character is going to make it at least till the end of the book. So did you think that took away from the suspense of like the 9 times that he was in mortal danger and he got out of it, but someone else died? Because I never was under any impression that he was ever going to die, even at the end. Like, I knew he was going to get out of it. I don't know if that's the author saving him or like just always finding a way to get out of it. But did you guys think that or have any comments on that?
Well, I think that even if he doesn't die, really bad things can still happen to him. I mean, he gets sold into slavery. That could happen again.
He did end up sold into slavery, so.
And a lot of his friends died.
Yeah.
Sherrick Sherm could have captured him and taken him somewhere else or whatever, yeah. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, Trig.
Trig is a dick. He has no redeeming qualities.
Well, it is sort of the story is very much like, I guess, the hero's journey. There's only one character at the center. He can't really die. He has to go on this journey, and it leads to an inevitable place. But I think, I don't know, it feels like Abercrombie knew it was that story. So even at the end where they're doing all these cheesy lines between the hero and the villain, I don't know. I still kind of enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, I never didn't enjoy it. That's not what I was saying. It's like I said, I was still caught up in everything that was happening. And
I did have a note that when he sang when they were rowing and he sings, that kind of got me a little teary. Like, it was just really nicely written and the emotion seemed really, what's the word?
Powerful?
Real? What's authentic?
Okay, genuine?
Yeah. that too, absolutely. Also, I didn't really care for the names. I thought Laithlin was an awesome name, but that's one thing about Ice and Fire is that I just kind of randomly walk around and say Jaime Lannister, and there's so many
that's why
names.
there's a bubble of space around you when you walk.
Or if I haven't showered. No, but that's something I just love about pretty much all of George's work. And since I just haven't been doing a ton of reading now that I'm starting to read, it's something that I pay attention to. And I thought, and maybe it was a completely intentional thing, but all the names were so ugly. So there's that.
Yeah, we should vote for the ugliest name.
Gromgil Gorm?
Shadik Shiram is pretty ugly as well.
See, I don't know.
Jod looks ugly to me. And Rolf sounds like vomit.
It sounds like Rolf the dog from the Muppets.
Yeah.
I didn't think Shadik Sharam was ugly. She seemed the most exotic and, like, I don't know. I got this, like, Arabian pirate vibe from her. I mean, she's a pirate. It's not a vibe. She was a pirate, but, like, more romantic than ugly, I think. There's a really fun book called Cinnamon and Gunpowder, it's actually based off this actual female pirate in the 1700s who captured a French chef, and every day she kept him alive so he could make her amazing meals on her pirate ship. It's a really fun book. That's what she reminded me of, because he's this like depressed, like I don't know, it reminded me of like Marvin the clinically depressed robot from Hitchhiker's Guide, and she keeps him alive. Of course, there's a romance and everything, but it's just a really fun story. But this swashbuckling pirate who has the French chef, which I thought was funny. But she didn't care. Shadik Sharam didn't care much about her underlings too much. I really liked how through the stories, Sumail, who was like the slave navigator, it kind of really showed you that they weren't just slaves. Like they were more, they weren't all just chained to an oar, shackled for the rest of their lives. They had roles, and Trig was the overseer, and they had skills. Yeah, it's more like, ancient Greece and Rome, they had slaves, but they also had slaves that were teachers and professors, and you were still owed your allegiance to your lord, but you could still walk through town and get the groceries and stuff.
Sumail still had a collar. She wore it every time they were at dock because she was more valuable than anybody else on the boat.
Was she the one with the pretty collar? Or no, that
she
was Ankron.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember.
And he was another one of my characters.
Yeah, she was the one with the pretty color.
Okay.
But Ankron, I kind of liked how, you thought he was this sniveling guy, just trying to make a dime, and you find out that he actually was helping his family, or trying to help his family.
Yeah, I feel like if that was actually the case,
sad.
that like slave trader would have sold his family off and just taken his money anyway.
Oh yeah, he had no reason to. Like, how he never would have known anyway.
Like he's worried about keeping his word that he would take care of them.
Unless he's just keeping them as house slaves and somebody else is paying for them. I guess that's pretty cool. Not cool, you know what I mean? God, I'm a slave trader enthusiast.
That's all right.
You said it.
I'm defending the brother murderers. You're defending the slave traders. So it's all right. This wasn't the kind of book that I was underlining a lot of stuff. There were a couple like really good exchanges, but my favorite scene was actually when they met the Shen savages when they were wrecked on the shore, and you think they're going to be these like they show them they're these white painted savages in the trees, and they're gonna shoot them with their poison arrows, and then when you meet them, they're like, oh, we were actually quite looking forward to destroying you lot, and they were like these civilized people who like kind of like talk, and they were like, well, we have honor, and you've come to ask us for bread and salt, so we won't kill you now. And it kind of just flipped it instantly, where like they became the outsider savages, and these were like actual people who had a society, and they were being bothered, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's cool. I also liked when they met the people in the winter village there, and all they wanted was their steel.
I thought that was a little too neat. Like after you go through the whole trial with the Shens, and then it's kind of the same like ramp up. Like we're worried, we're scared, shit's gonna go down, and then it was like, oh, give me a hug. It just seemed so like easy that they were just good people.
Yeah, so it keeps with the Tom Bombadil thread from the first podcast. They were the or maybe more Aiwendil, the last homely house. They could rest.
They died.
Yeah, I know.
To me, it makes sense though that people that live that way would like take care of other people because you need people to live.
Yeah.
Because I know, like I've watched some documentary things on Alaska, and people are very community oriented because you have to be to survive up there. So that's kind of how I saw it.
Enter Sarah Palin joke.
Oh, come on. I doubt she lived out in the wilderness. She shot moose from a helicopter. Congratulations. But anyway, that's how I saw that. That's true.
That makes a lot of sense.
And then like when he was looking around and he's like, this place is like a hovel, but everything looks like he thinks everything is worth more now because he's had nothing. So it kind of showed some growth in his character there. I like that.
Can we talk about the last chapter when Yarvi poisons his minister teacher? I forgot her name.
Oh yeah.
Because I did not see that coming at all. It surprised me completely, and because of that, I gave the book a 4 lemon cake. And I would have given only 3 if it had ended before that chapter, because I thought it was such a contrast with the cheesy lines in the chapter before, and like the reveal and his cousin being all making the same mistakes and stuff. And then we have this little scene where Yarvi's like, okay, I uncovered all of your machinations. Now I'm going to kill you.
I already killed you.
it just felt like the final step in Yarvi's evolution. And for like the whole book, he felt kind of distant. Like I didn't really understand his motivations, but at the end, he felt like he had like really come into his own and started thinking for himself. I really liked that.
Kill the boy, become the man. Yeah, he definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
He did that.
When you reread it, the book starts out with her teaching him how to make the poison and how she talks about how it's odorless and tasteless, and it kind of like bookends it nicely with him giving her the tea, and she's like, oh, it smells good. He's like, yeah, it does. You should taste it. She tastes it. She's like, oh, just like I remember it. And then he's like, yeah, I already killed you. And it's weird that he just, now I'm the minister. Nobody cares how she died. I'm just the minister now. It's like, really? That's how it works?
Yeah, and it's a good point about like Nothing and Odom's, like the theatricality of their duel, as if that's kind of, you know, the real power play, but ultimately it's the kind of behind the scenes thing with Yarvi and the minister. That's where he sort of understands the real mechanics of this whole plot, and he kind of dispatches her quietly and secretly and away from all the cameras, I guess.
And it did have, you know, some heft and emotion to it, because, you know, throughout the whole thing he kind of thinks back to her as his real mother, and the fact that he's willing to go that far to kind of do what he thinks he needs to do.
And I'm wondering if it's showing that he's entertaining the idea of taking a bigger role in, like, I don't know, the governance or the mechanics of power in this world. Like, maybe he doesn't want the throne, but maybe he doesn't see the throne as the be-all and end-all of power. Maybe he's far more comfortable working in the shadows, like a kind of Varys type.
Well, now that he's kind of seen, like, the right-hand people taking more of a, like a, they're the ones running this stuff. It's
yeah, it seems like the ministers are doing all this.
And I think he figured that out when he was talking to all the ministers, like when he put together the eagle thing, which I didn't even think of. The eagle that said kill the king, and he's just like, they wanted to kill the king.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that either.
Because they talked about how they have, like, they say pieces of their messages. And I never even would have thought of it. But apparently he did, because he's so clever.
Yeah, I mean, you can't help but I compared him to Tyrion before. It seems like he's overtly he's not a dwarf, but he's deformed. He's got father issues. You know, he's captured by these, it's almost like everything Tyrion does from, you know, with the Eyrie, and then when he's captured by the Hill Clans, then he turns the Hill Clans to come and be on his side, and then they come down and they're his army when he gets back to King's Landing. It's kind of like he kind of has that journey. But I always liked Tyrion throughout all that, and I didn't particularly like ARP throughout his whole journey. Still, it was a super enjoyable book, and I definitely recommend it to people.
How many lemon cakes did you give it?
3.25.
Anything over 3 is recommendation.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hooked for the rest of it. I'm going to read the other 2. And I'm also a sucker for short fantasy novels that are under 300 pages or around 300 pages, because I can't read the
almost like they're written for young adults.
Yeah, almost. I'd like to read The Wheel of Time, but I can't. But who knows? 10 years ago, I said, who's ever going to want to read these silly books with dragons on the cover? So you never know where you're going to be.
I can't commit to The Wheel of Time. I tried the first one, and it just.
Well, even the ones you love, the Kingkiller Chronicles, those are what, 1,000 pages a piece.
Yeah, but the first one was like one of the first fantasy. Well, not the first fantasy books I read, but one of the first new fantasy books I read, and wow, I was like, I can't wait to read more fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what good books can, especially if it's something that you don't read normally, they can get you into, you know, a new genre, which I was hoping this would do for me, but I'm convinced this is actually science fiction. So there's that. Brett?
Jaime Lannister.
So did we want to do our one night marry, kill, or throw to Mother Sea for any of these characters?
I would do Laithlin. I wouldn't marry her.
I want her to manage my finances, so I'm going to marry her. I'd probably one night Shadiq Sharam, but I don't want to get involved with that for too long.
Yeah, she's definitely one night material.
She's a little crazy. I mean, you marry Sumail, she's so smart. She knows how to do stuff.
Yeah, she'll get you where you're going, too.
Right, I get lost all the time. I don't know about Odom.
He seems pretty bent on killing his family members, so I wouldn't marry him.
I'd be his daughter.
Oh yeah, she's not on the list. I think I would. She seems very eager to please. I might have to one night her.
But then she'd tell you you're rubbish at kissing. Screw you.
Oh no, she wouldn't.
So no takers for nothing at all. I'm surprised.
Or Yarvi. I
think Yarvi's marriage material. I mean, he's especially Yarvi at the end of the book, where he's sort of come into his own and wizened up a little bit. But I wasn't too into the whiny Yarvi that much either. So.
Yeah.
What about Gromgil Gorm?
Yeah.
I would like to have a drink with him.
A horn of ale or whatever he drinks out of a skull, probably.
If he looks anything like Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones, I'd go out with him.
Well, yeah.
Didn't he play Conan in the new movie?
He did, yeah.
I think Ankren, you marry him because he does what he can for his family. I mean, he tried. He just couldn't live. That's all.
Do you really want to be married to a slave?
Well, he wasn't a slave when they got married.
We don't know that. Yeah,
Yarvi wasn't a slave either. I don't know. When you're a slave, you really don't have a choice in what you do. But he was trying his best to provide for his family, even though he was a slave, which I thought was pretty admirable when you find out the real reason why he needed money.
Admirable and naive.
Yeah, but when you're in that situation, I suppose you do whatever you can possibly do.
Yeah, keep hope alive.
Right, because otherwise, what do you have? You just have to give up.
Nothing. You have nothing.
Who is washing the floor?
Duncan, I notice you're not getting involved in our fictional one-night stands with
there's so
characters.
many great choices. I can't pick one. Probably Sumail. I don't know. I just liked her. She's cool. She can use a compass.
Yeah.
I'm throwing Trig to Mother C. That guy has no redeeming qualities.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I think the Shen Savages know what's going on. They seem pretty well take care of themselves, and they've got a nice honor code going on there also. But I don't think we know much about any individual characters to make an informed decision either way.
I want to say there wasn't a lot of sexy characters in this book.
Even Sumail, who was the love interest. I mean, she was cute. She ended up cute in my mind, but the whole notch in the lip thing, I wasn't quite sure how to picture that. I mean, tomboys are cute, but
yeah, I can picture like a gap tooth, but a gap lip. It's like borderline clefty, and it's kind of weird. But not that I'm not trying to demean.
Yes, you.
No, I'm not.
You're going to hell.
I just meant I couldn't physically picture it. I can't picture someone with a piece of their lip missing. It's tough to picture.
I think probably Laithlin was the closest to me to be something that could be attractive and sought after.
Yeah, I got like an elven vibe from her, like this ethereal. It's also in her name, like it sounds like a I don't know, Laithlin. Very
it's the prettiest name.
It is. You get Laithlin, and you get names like Sumail, and then you get Jod and Rolf and Trig. It's different cultures, but
I don't picture images very clearly in my head when I read, but she kind of equated with Cersei, like blonde, gorgeous, done.
I thought she equated more with Galadriel.
Yeah, that's what I was like. She's good with math.
More like...
she wouldn't tell the Iron Bank to F off.
She is the Iron Bank.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She's got her face on the money.
What were his father and brother's names? Do we get those? I'm sure we do early on.
His father's name sounds a bit like Uthiel, I think.
Yeah.
Uthric. Was it Uthric?
Uthric, yeah.
Uthric, yeah.
Because some of the, like Uthil sounds okay, I think, but Odin, kinda. Like when Yarvi, it doesn't fit with the rest of the names in this family. It seems strange. It almost seems like a nickname for him.
Yeah, or the dog's name.
Yarvalamu.
It's weird because I just finished reading the Alaran Codex or something like that, and the kid's name is Tavi, and I kept interchanging them in my head. So you guys are lucky I wasn't calling him Tavi all night.
Glad we dodged that bullet.
Yeah. And nobody would have got the reference, and I would have felt bad. like just happened now.
Yeah.
So you can cut that out.
There's someone listening who got it. Don't worry.
I don't know.
Made someone's day.
So are you guys planning on reading the rest of the books in the series? Or I know Amber said you're probably not, right?
I would probably wait several years until they came out in the library. I didn't dislike it, and I really enjoyed the first half, but I put it down feeling like I don't ever need to pick that back up again. So, if they were free, sure.
If you saw them at a garage sale for $1.
Exactly. For 50 cents or $1, I would buy that.
Yeah, when I first started, I was kind of nervous that this was going to send me down a rabbit hole of reading nothing but like high fantasy and because I've reread the Song of Ice and Fire books 3 times, but I really haven't read other stuff. And after 100 pages, like, oh god, I love this. I'm going to read all these, and then I'm kind of glad that I changed my mind halfway through, and I'll just take them, 1 or 2 at a time and spread them out. But definitely still recommend it. I think it's a good choice for the book club because it led to some interesting discussions. It's not a Song of Ice and Fire material, but what else is really?
I mean, I'll read the rest of them. I read every Joe Abercrombie book. And if anybody ever wants to read the trilogy, it's like, if you really want to go the audiobook route, I don't usually listen to audiobooks, but those are amazing. The First Law audiobooks, the guy that does them is so good. It changed the way I read them the next time I read them because he does such a good job.
Had you read them first and then listened to the audiobook as a re-listen? Or reread?
Yeah. They're the only audiobooks I really have ever liked because, I mean, I tried The Song of Ice and Fire and I just can't get into it. But
that's another discussion.
Yeah. But this guy, I think is Stephen
I just looked
Pacey,
it up. Steve Pacey.
He's just unbelievable. And it's definitely him because I bought the Best Served Cold one and it's a different guy and it's not the same. Like, it's just not as good. But he is so good. Like, the way he does characters and the way he interchanges between them. Can't say enough good things.
I'm glad that it sort of got me into Joe Abercrombie, and I might go back and read some of the earlier stuff too, because he was one of those authors that was very recommended to me over the years. I just had never gotten into him. I think that wraps up our second VOK book club. Does anyone mention any upcoming VOKs they're involved in or plan to be involved in?
Rereading Dying of the Light for an upcoming VOK yet to be scheduled, and you better be as well.
I haven't started it yet, but I'm in Silmarillion mode for the series, so I'm really reading nothing but Silmarillion and then short books in between. But our Silmarillion, the first episode should be recorded next week, and so that'll be out shortly after that. But it seems like there's a lot of upcoming episodes. I know the second comic book club is going to be this week also, and I believe Women in Geek Culture is coming up, and Sopranos, Duncan, I know that's sort of been an ongoing
I'm
rewatch.
slowly making my way through rewatch, but it's so good. I can't wait to talk about it. It's one of the best series ever.
See, I feel like I missed the boat on that again. I'd never watched it when it was on, and I feel like I missed my chance to start rewatching it 6 months ago.
Have you watched it? Well, yeah. I mean, once you get into it, you kind of just you can't stop watching it. It's very good.
No, I've been sucked into an awful but can't stop watching Netflix TV show Parenthood, which apparently is like it's just like a NBC drama, and I've got 90 episodes, and I'm watching nothing else but that. It's just always on. I love Peter Krause from 6 Feet Under, and it's got a pretty good cast, but it's your typical family comedic drama. But I think that's it. Thank you for joining us. And please be sure to vote for the next book club number 3. We'll have a thread up shortly. Just because it hasn't made it in the first 2 doesn't mean you can't vote for a book that you're particularly interested in and want to discuss. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Yay, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. See ya.
Bye.
Brett?
Jamie Lannister.
I hope it didn't sound like I was too anti it, because I don't want to be seen as like happily picking apart of something that everyone likes. I hope that's not what it sounded like.
No, you were fine. I thought it was good.
Because I didn't
like
want to
you
crap
were
on it. If I said something bad, I defended it.
You were just being critical. That's fine. That's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah, but who am I to criticize an actual published author?
Who are you?
You are.
You are a bookstore man. You're a fucking superhero. Don't even.
You have a handle. You can do whatever you want.
Thank you.
Also, editor.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to put some more of your bashing in here without us being there to interrupt you go right ahead.
No, I think
do whatever you want.
I got it all out. Don't worry.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to. My Kindle was dead, and I didn't skim back over anything. So sorry if I didn't really know what was going on. But
no, it's kind of a book that I was so into at the time, and then like a lot of it just went right out of my head, over the last 2 weeks. So I did.
It seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
It is weird how it doesn't really stick with you that well. Like even I read it twice, and it just didn't. I had to keep going. Like I didn't remember names and places that are just gone. I don't know. It's weird.
I only just finished it, and I can't really remember heaps of it.
No.
I liked it. I liked it overall. I really liked the writing, but yeah, just not. I don't know. Just like it didn't feel like it's not like a Song of Ice and Fire where it gives these really vivid descriptions of the world. It's very crackling sort of pace.
Brett, you feel differently about his other books?
His other books are paced like this, but I feel like the characters are just more memorable and they have more flavor to them. Like these characters, they're kind of black and white to me. I mean, he tried, but just didn't really get into it like the other books did. But maybe that's just because I finished the other series and this one is just starting. You know what I mean? Like I had an entire trilogy of those characters to get used to them, and it was all written before I started reading. Whereas this one, I just got to know them from one 300-page book, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that could be part of it. Because I mean, like A Song of Ice and Fire, I read like 3 books in a row, so it wasn't like I got in with the characters.
It didn't feel like he got to know any of the characters really that much, apart from Yavi, I guess, because he goes on the biggest journey. But the other characters kind of just, they were interesting, but they were just more a collection of traits than real people, I guess.
And even when they die, it's like, well, I guess he's gone now. I wasn't invested in any of the characters. I wasn't even really that invested in Yavi. If something cool had happened to him, I would have been all right with it. Like, I don't know where this trilogy's going, but that's interesting.
Brett?
Jaime Lannister.
I hope it didn't keep you up too late, Duncan. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning over there.
No, it's not too bad.
That's not.
No, I'm the one in the middle of the night.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's 3:30.
Oh, God.
Well, thank you for making the sacrifice. I know it's always tough to schedule these with everyone all across the globe. But,
well, I mean, it is like an hour and a half past my bedtime, but it's cool.
Oh, no.
You're just a growing new adult. You'll have a later bedtime. How old are you?
Let me podcast in my room. It's okay.
Can I just ask how old you are so I know how off I am?
I am 32 years of age.
Oh my God, you're older than me.
Can you believe that?
It's crazy, right? I don't even believe it myself.
All right.
I'm probably lying. I don't know.
But I hope I didn't offend you by calling you a kid.
I don't care, man. It's more of a compliment than anything else.
I've tried to talk about, like, I don't know if this makes sense to anyone else, but it's weird that I associate certain people with their avatars on the forums. Like, when I hear Zach talk, I picture that character talking, and when
I'm a bird.
and no, not a bird. I don't know. It's not everybody. Like, when I see Amber, like, I know you're not a chihuahua, so it's different.
Thank you.
That must have been weird when you heard Shellfish and he had like that dog.
Oh, that's
no,
right. Yeah.
I still think of him as like goofy Jaime Lannister.
Well, speaking of Jaime Lannister, I watched Kingdom of Heaven the other day, and he's in that movie. I didn't even know it.
Really? I saw that movie like 18 times.
Is he one of the guys with
Really?
Liam
It's such a
Neeson?
cameo. It's a cameo. It also has Ian Glenn in it. He plays the king at the end. It's so weird. Because I was sitting here watching it because it came up on the forums. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Jaime Lannister. And my girl was like, what are you talking about?
Wait, who was he? Was he one of the guys with Liam Neeson, like in his entourage, or?
No, he was the douchey son that came to confront them.
Oh.
The Baron's son.
Okay.
So, they don't go into him much in the theatrical release, so you kind of need to get the extended edition to get a little more of him.
I don't know which. I have the DVD. I'm gonna have to rewatch all those freaking night movies that were brought up in that thread. I already have The Messenger out to rewatch.
Yeah, I saw most of these movies in like 8th grade history. Our teacher would put on a movie like
movies?
every other class.
That's not a young adult movie.
No, but this is France. YOLO.
Oh, you guys are special.
They just walk around naked.
She didn't even have a defense for that. She was like, yep, we do.
Yeah, it's true. Friends.
Brett?
Jaime Lannister.
I think technically you'd be what the book publishers call a new adult. There's the new adult fiction, which is like 18 to 22.
You son of a bitch.
What?
No, it's an official thing. They're trying, like, there's actually new adult sections in some bookstores now for, like, Perks of Being a Wallflower or that kind of stuff, where they're not kids books, but they're not completely adult. Anyway,
Well,
sorry. We can have a whole separate
Isn't that what the
discussion.
young adult genre is for?
No, because young adult doesn't have sex and it doesn't have graphic violence.
Oh, okay.
It has kissing and.
I thought the Perks of Being a Wallflower was young adult.
Well, that's why it's new adult, because we keep it in the YA section, but then a parent comes in. Did you know there's suicide and there's sex and there's everything in this?
Okay.
Sorry.
Huh.
All right.
So Greg, you're putting me between 17 and 22. I appreciate
I made that mistake.
I thought you said you. I don't know. It's weird when you just know people from their voices. I didn't mean to
No, I
offend
understand.
or compliment you.
It's cool, man.
If you're really 50, you have a lovely voice.
Well, thank you. I'm not 50 though.
Okay.
It's pretty close.
Oh, that hurts.
All right, back on track. Anyway.
Great.
Brett,
Jaime Lannister.
anyone else have anything else for the book itself?
Get it from the library. Don't pay $29.99 for it. $24.99.
26. It's only 26.
Or
Whatever.
get it for Kindle.
I got it from the.
It's only like $8.
I'll have to cut
Or
that part
euros.
out.
Go to the bookstore and get it.
Just so everybody, I mean, not to toot the independent bookstore horn, but ebooks are pretty much universally priced, and you can get a ebook version of on using the Kobo app or using the any independent, like not Google Reader anymore because they don't have it, but Kobo, what's the Nook, the Barnes & Noble one, they're pretty much the same price because they're set by the publishers. That's why there was the whole battle with Amazon and the price gouging on ebooks, which is where they actually make their money. But I don't want to turn this into an anti-Amazon
Okay.
rant, which I already did.
Just to clear things up, I live in France. I can't find any English language books in bookstores here, so
France,
that's why I use Kindle.
Yeah, but France actually passed laws that like Amazon can't only discount their books by like 20%, and they can't offer free shipping. So they're actually really leading the fight against Amazon.
Can't offer free shipping. I don't like that.
Mm-hmm. They're a little leading. Okay, so that's it for the discussion proper, I believe. Good book overall. We all loved it. Well, we all liked it and loved it to various degrees, but it's definitely enjoyable, and we definitely recommend it.
And go to your bookstore and buy it.
Yes, so it's a good pick for the book club.
Preferably your local independent bookstore.
Oh, you guys, yes.
Which in Vermont is Phoenix Books. See, I know what it is.
There you go. Brett,
Jaime Lannister.
Yeah, he seems to have kind of, I don't know, internalized a lot of that. I don't know. Yeah. Sorry.
Are you tired, man?
I lost my point. Sorry.
Brett,
Jaime Lannister.
hello everyone. Welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Today we'll be discussing. Sorry, I'll I actually typed it out too. Hello
Maybe
everyone.
you tried it in a British accent.
No, I've wasted my British accent on the FCRs.
Oh.
That's all right.
It gets better and better.
Yeah, and it'll be British someday too.